Life can change in an instant, especially when kindness collides with corporate policy. Comment where you're watching from today as we dive into a story that shook a small Ohio community and caught the attention of millions across the nation. It was a typical Tuesday evening at the Golden Harvest restaurant in Cincinnati, where Douglas Lawrence had been managing operations for the past 8 years. The restaurant's warm lighting and rustic decor created an inviting atmosphere that had made it a local favorite. Among the evening staff, Angela Turner stood out for her exceptional service and genuine warmth toward customers. She had been working there for 3 years, supporting her 2 children as a single mother, never missing a shift and always going above and beyond for every guest. The events that would unfold that evening began when J.D. Vance, accompanied by a small group, walked into the restaurant. Angela, who had been following local politics and remembered Vance from his campaign visits to the neighborhood, recognized him immediately. What happened next was a simple act of kindness that would spiral into an unexpected controversy. Vance and his group enjoyed their meal, and when it came time for the bill, Angela decided to apply the restaurant's standard military veteran discount, knowing about Vance's service in the Marine Corps. It was a small gesture, just 15% off the total bill, but it was enough to catch Douglas Lawrence's attention when he reviewed the day's transactions. The following morning, Douglas called Angela into his office. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face as he held up the receipt from the previous night. "Care to explain this unauthorized discount?" he asked, his voice carrying an edge that Angela had never heard before. She explained her decision, citing the restaurant's long-standing policy of honoring veterans. But Douglas wasn't satisfied. "This isn't about veterans," he said, his fingers drumming against his desk. "This is about politics. We can't have employees making decisions based on political affiliations." Despite Angela's protests that the discount was solely about Vance's military service, Douglas remained unmoved. The tension in the small office grew as Douglas continued, "We have to maintain neutrality in this business. Your personal views can't influence how we treat customers." Angela stood her ground, explaining that she would have offered the same discount to any veteran, regardless of their political stance. But Douglas had made up his mind. What happened next would send shockwaves through the community. Douglas handed Angela her final paycheck and termination papers. "Your services are no longer required," he said coldly, ignoring the tears welling up in her eyes. Angela, thinking about her children and mounting bills, felt her world crumbling around her. But the story doesn't end there. As Angela gathered her belongings and walked out of the restaurant for the last time, she had no idea that her simple act of kindness was about to trigger a chain of events that would capture national attention. The regular customers who had witnessed her dedication over the years would not stay silent. Neither would the local veteran community, who had always felt welcomed and respected by her service. Word of Angela's firing spread quickly through social media, starting with a post from Robert Cunningham, a regular customer who had overheard the entire exchange. The post detailed how a hard-working single mother had lost her job for simply honoring a veteran's service. It didn't matter whether people supported Vance's politics or not. The story touched a nerve about basic human decency and respect for military service. The local community began to rally. William Barrett, a retired Marine who frequented the restaurant, organized a peaceful protest outside the Golden Harvest. "This isn't about left or right," he told the growing crowd. "This is about right and wrong. We stand by those who stand by our veterans." As the story gained traction, more details emerged about Angela's character. Customers came forward with stories of her kindness, how she had helped elderly patrons to their cars during rainstorms, remembered regulars' orders by heart, and always had a warm smile ready even during the busiest shifts. Her co-worker, Michelle Hammond, revealed how Angela had covered her shifts when Michelle's mother was in the hospital, expecting nothing in return. Douglas Lawrence, meanwhile, found himself facing mounting pressure. The restaurant's social media pages were flooded with negative comments. Regular customers began choosing other establishments. The local business association expressed their concern about the situation. But Douglas stood firm in his decision, releasing a statement defending the termination as a necessary measure to maintain political neutrality in the workplace. What nobody realized was that this was just the beginning. The story was about to take an unexpected turn that would challenge everyone's assumptions about power, justice, and the true meaning of community. The next 24 hours would bring developments that nobody could have anticipated, proving that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. The question isn't just about a discount or a job, it's about what we value as a society. When did showing appreciation for military service become a political statement? Where do we draw the line between company policy and basic human decency? As this story continues to unfold, we invite you to share your thoughts. Have you ever been punished for an act of kindness? How would you have handled this situation? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned for what happens next in this extraordinary tale of principle, community, and unexpected consequences. The morning after Angela Turner's termination, the Golden Harvest restaurant became the epicenter of an unprecedented community response. As dawn broke over Cincinnati, Gregory Ward, a local business owner, was already organizing a support network for Angela through his extensive connections in the restaurant industry. What started as a simple disagreement over a veteran's discount was about to transform into something much larger than anyone could have anticipated. Douglas Lawrence arrived at work that morning to find his email inbox flooded with messages. Among them was a letter from Stephanie Norman, the president of the Ohio Restaurant Association, expressing concern about the situation. The letter carefully detailed how the incident could be interpreted as discrimination against veterans, regardless of the political angle Douglas had cited in his decision. Meanwhile, across town, Angela's former coworker, Michelle Hammond, had started a GoFundMe campaign. Supporting a single mom fired for honoring a veteran quickly gained traction, with donations pouring in from across the country. Veterans groups from all 50 states began sharing the story, turning what could have been a local incident into a national conversation about respect, service, and corporate policies. The story took an unexpected turn when Christopher Curtis, a prominent local attorney and Marine Corps veteran, offered to represent Angela pro bono. Curtis wasn't interested in just fighting the termination. He saw an opportunity to address a broader issue about how businesses interpret and implement policies regarding veteran benefits. His involvement brought a new level of scrutiny to the situation. By midday, the local news stations had picked up the story. Jennifer Hoffman, a respected anchor at Channel 7, conducted an in-depth investigation into the Golden Harvest's past practices. She uncovered that the restaurant had previously offered military discounts without incident, raising questions about the sudden change in policy enforcement. The investigation also revealed that Angela had maintained an impeccable employment record throughout her 3 years of service. The pressure on Douglas Lawrence continued to mount when Raymond Murphy, the CEO of the restaurant's parent company, requested an immediate conference call. During the tense conversation, Murphy expressed deep concern about the negative publicity and the potential long-term impact on their brand. However, Douglas remained steadfast in his position, arguing that allowing employees to make independent decisions about discounts could set a dangerous precedent. As the afternoon wore on, the story took another significant turn. Kimberly Delgado, a former Golden Harvest employee, came forward with documentation showing that the restaurant had regularly offered discretionary discounts to various groups, including first responders, teachers, and senior citizens. This revelation directly contradicted Douglas's claim that strict discount policies were consistently enforced. The veteran community's response grew stronger by the hour. William Barrett, who had organized the initial protest, now coordinated with other veteran organizations to plan a larger demonstration. Harold Bradley, commander of the local VFW post, mobilized his members to join the cause. What began as a small gathering outside the restaurant had evolved into a planned peaceful demonstration involving hundreds of veterans and supporters. Social media amplified the story's reach. Patricia Vincent, a popular food blogger with a significant following, shared her personal experiences with Angela's service at the Golden Harvest. Her post detailed countless instances of Angela's kindness, including how she had helped an elderly couple celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary by decorating their table with photos they had brought in, all on her own time. The situation became more complex when J.D. Vance himself learned of the incident. His office released a statement expressing concern about the termination and emphasizing that military service should be honored regardless of political affiliations. This statement brought national media attention to the story, with major networks picking up the narrative of a local restaurant manager's decisions spiraling into a nationwide debate about veterans' rights and corporate policies. Back at the Golden Harvest, the impact was immediate and severe. Regular customers like Richard Espinoza, who had dined there weekly for the past decade, publicly announced they would take their business elsewhere. The restaurant's lunch service saw a dramatic decline in patrons, with many tables sitting empty during what would typically be their busiest hours. Douglas Lawrence's position became increasingly isolated when Sharon Franklin, the restaurant's assistant manager, submitted her resignation in protest. In her resignation letter, which quickly circulated among staff, she detailed her own military family background and expressed her inability to continue working under management that failed to respect military service. The community's support for Angela continued to grow in unexpected ways. Michelle Flores, owner of a competing restaurant, offered Angela an immediate position with better pay and flexible hours to accommodate her children's schedules. Local businesses began displaying "We support our veterans" signs in their windows, many specifically mentioning Angela's story as an inspiration. The afternoon brought another surprising development when Timothy Cunningham, a regular customer and local business consultant, revealed that he had been maintaining a detailed log of his interactions at the Golden Harvest. His records showed consistent application of military discounts over the past 2 years, directly contradicting Douglas's claim that such discounts required special authorization. As evening approached, the story gained another dimension when Angela's co-workers shared their experiences with Douglas's management style. Melissa Nelson, a server with 5 years of experience, described a pattern of increasingly rigid policies that had begun to affect staff morale months before the incident. Her testimony painted a picture of a manager who had lost touch with the human element of the service industry. The local Chamber of Commerce called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. Rebecca Pruitt, the Chamber's president, expressed concern about the potential impact on other businesses in the area. The meeting resulted in a formal statement supporting veteran-friendly business practices and encouraging local establishments to review their discount policies. Meanwhile, Angela's story touched hearts across the community. Ronald Cantrell, a local school principal, organized a support group for single parents facing workplace challenges, inspired by Angela's situation. The initiative quickly gained supporters and highlighted how one person's story could catalyze positive community action. As the day drew to a close, the Golden Harvest's parent company faced mounting pressure to address the situation. Their corporate offices received thousands of calls and emails, many from veteran organizations demanding action. The company's public relations team struggled to manage the crisis as the story continued to spread across social media platforms. The evening news coverage brought a new perspective when Christine Ferguson, a business ethics professor at the local university, analyzed the situation. She pointed out how the incident reflected a larger disconnect between corporate policies and community values, suggesting that businesses needed to reevaluate how they balanced rules with human consideration. By nightfall, what had started as a simple act of kindness had evolved into a movement. The GoFundMe campaign had exceeded its initial goal tenfold, with donations continuing to pour in from across the country. Veterans groups from neighboring states announced plans to join the upcoming demonstration, and several national veterans organizations expressed interest in getting involved. The day ended with an unexpected announcement from the Golden Harvest's parent company. They would be conducting a thorough review of the incident and all related policies. However, the community's trust had been shaken, and many wondered if any corporate response could repair the damage done to the restaurant's reputation. As the sun set on this tumultuous day, the story of Angela Turner and her simple act of respect for a veteran's service had become a catalyst for change. The questions raised went beyond just one restaurant's policies or one manager's decision. They touched on fundamental issues of respect, community values, and the recognition of military service. The events of this single day demonstrated how quickly a community could mobilize in support of what they believed was right. But as night fell, nobody could predict how the situation would continue to evolve or what consequences awaited Douglas Lawrence and the Golden Harvest restaurant in the days to come. The third day of the controversy brought unprecedented developments that would reshape the entire narrative. Dawn had barely broken when Kenneth Martin, the regional director of operations for Golden Harvest's parent company, arrived unannounced at the restaurant. His presence signaled that the corporate office was taking the situation far more seriously than anyone had anticipated. The morning began with a closed-door meeting between Kenneth Martin and Douglas Lawrence. Through the restaurant's glass windows, early morning protesters could see the intense discussion taking place. Witnesses described Douglas's face growing increasingly pale as Kenneth gestured emphatically, occasionally pointing to a thick folder of documents on the table between them. What the protesters couldn't know was that Kenneth had brought with him the results of an overnight corporate audit. The audit, led by Melissa Miller, the company's chief compliance officer, had uncovered a pattern of inconsistent policy enforcement under Douglas's management. More significantly, they had discovered that Douglas had previously approved similar veteran discounts without incident, suggesting his reaction to Angela's case was unusually severe. Outside the restaurant, the protest had grown substantially. Vincent Dean, a retired Air Force colonel, had organized a veterans breakfast rally. Hundreds of veterans and supporters gathered at a nearby diner, deliberately choosing not to give their business to Golden Harvest. The sight of military uniforms filling the competing restaurant's parking lot sent a powerful message. The situation took an unexpected turn when Philip Russell, a longtime regular at Golden Harvest, came forward with security camera footage from his nearby business. The footage clearly showed Douglas Lawrence himself applying veteran discounts to several customers' bills in the months before the incident with Angela. This revelation directly contradicted his stated reasons for terminating Angela's employment. By mid-morning, the corporate response had shifted into high gear. Elizabeth Armstrong, the company's senior vice president of public relations, held an impromptu press conference outside the restaurant. She announced the immediate placement of Douglas Lawrence on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Furthermore, she revealed that the company was implementing a comprehensive review of all discount policies across their restaurant chain. The community's response to these developments was immediate and powerful. Rachel Brewer, the leader of a local business association, organized an impromptu job fair specifically for service industry workers who might feel uncomfortable continuing to work at Golden Harvest. The event, hastily arranged in a nearby community center, drew dozens of restaurant owners eager to hire experienced staff who shared their values. Meanwhile, Angela Turner's story had caught the attention of national media outlets. Rodney Stewart, a prominent network news anchor, arrived in Cincinnati to cover the developing situation. His presence brought a new level of scrutiny to the case, as his investigative team began digging deeper into the restaurant's history and Douglas Lawrence's management practices. The investigation uncovered more than anyone expected. Howard Higgins, a former assistant manager who had worked under Douglas, provided documentation showing a pattern of selective policy enforcement. According to Higgins, Douglas had frequently bent rules for certain customers while strictly enforcing them for others, suggesting personal bias played a role in his decision-making. The veteran community's response continued to grow stronger. Brandon Palmer, a retired Navy SEAL and successful business owner, announced the creation of a foundation to support service industry workers who face workplace discrimination. The foundation's first act would be to provide Angela with a year's worth of living expenses while she pursued legal action. As the day progressed, more former employees came forward with their stories. Crystal Johnson, who had worked as a hostess 2 years prior, shared how Douglas had terminated her employment after she offered a discount to a group of firefighters following a major emergency response in the area. Her story suggested a pattern of rigid policy enforcement that went against the spirit of community service. The corporate investigation took another significant turn when Patricia Gordon, the company's head of human resources, discovered that Douglas had failed to document several previous instances of employee disciplinary actions. This procedural oversight called into question the validity of all his personnel decisions, including Angela's termination. Local politicians began weighing in on the situation. Robert Manning, a city council member and Marine Corps veteran, proposed a city ordinance requiring businesses to clearly post their discount policies, preventing arbitrary enforcement. The proposal gained immediate support from both sides of the political aisle. The afternoon brought another surprising development when Michelle Mendoza, a current Golden Harvest employee, organized a staff walkout. 15 employees, representing nearly half of the restaurant staff, placed their aprons on their tables and walked out in solidarity with Angela. The image of their unified exit became a powerful symbol of worker solidarity. J.D. Vance's office released a second statement, this time calling for a broader discussion about how businesses treat veterans and service industry workers. The statement emphasized the importance of supporting both veterans and the workers who serve them, bringing additional national attention to the evolving situation. The corporate response continued to evolve as Raymond Murphy, the CEO, announced the formation of a special committee to review all company policies regarding military discounts and employee discretion. The committee would include veterans, business leaders, and service industry workers, ensuring a balanced perspective on future policy decisions. The local veteran community's support took on a new dimension when Gregory Jackson, owner of a successful restaurant chain, offered to partner with Angela to open her own restaurant. His offer included full financial backing and operational support, presenting an unexpected opportunity born from the controversy. As evening approached, the story gained another layer of complexity when Thomas Gutierrez, a business ethics expert, published an analysis of the situation in a major newspaper. His article highlighted how the incident reflected broader issues in corporate America, where rigid policy enforcement often conflicts with community values and basic human decency. The impact on Golden Harvest's business continued to worsen. Jennifer Baldwin, the restaurant's accountant, reported that daily revenues had dropped by 70% since the incident began. The dramatic decline forced corporate leadership to consider more dramatic action to salvage the situation. Support for Angela continued to grow in unexpected ways. Stephanie Cox, a local real estate agent, offered to help Angela find affordable housing closer to her children's school. The gesture highlighted how the community was coming together to support not just her employment needs, but her family's overall well-being. The day's events culminated in an emergency board meeting of the parent company, held via video conference. Sources close to the discussion reported that the board was considering significant changes to their management structure and policy enforcement procedures across all their locations. As night fell, the Golden Harvest restaurant stood nearly empty, its usually bustling dining room silent. The few customers who did enter were mostly curious onlookers, more interested in witnessing the ongoing situation than enjoying a meal. The contrast with the crowded competing restaurants nearby told its own story. The events of this third day had transformed what began as a simple act of kindness into a national conversation about corporate policies, veterans' rights, and human dignity in the workplace. The story had evolved far beyond one manager's decision or one employee's termination, touching on fundamental questions about how businesses should balance rules with compassion. As the community prepared for another day of developments, one thing had become clear: the impact of this incident would extend far beyond Cincinnati, potentially influencing how businesses across the country approach similar situations in the future. The question was no longer just about Angela's job or Douglas's decision. It had become about the kind of society we want to create and the values we choose to honor. The fourth day of the Golden Harvest controversy brought dramatic developments that would permanently reshape the restaurant industry's approach to veteran benefits and employee empowerment. The morning began with an unexpected press conference called by Raymond Murphy, the parent company's CEO, who had flown in specifically to address the situation personally. Standing before a crowd of reporters, Murphy announced sweeping changes that went far beyond the single incident with Angela Turner. Flanked by Kenneth Martin and Elizabeth Armstrong, he revealed that Douglas Lawrence had been permanently removed from his position. But that was just the beginning of the corporate response to the situation. The company announced the creation of the Golden Harvest Veterans Initiative, a comprehensive program designed to standardize and expand veterans' benefits across all their locations. Michael Crawford, a retired Marine Corps officer and business consultant, had been brought in to oversee the program's implementation. The initiative would ensure that all veterans received consistent recognition and benefits, regardless of their political affiliations or backgrounds. Angela Turner's situation received special attention during the announcement. Not only was she offered immediate reinstatement with back pay, but she was also promoted to a newly created position, Community Relations Director for the entire restaurant chain. The role would allow her to implement the values of compassion and service that had characterized her work as a server. However, the story took an unexpected turn when Angela, accompanied by her attorney Christopher Curtis, approached the podium. Rather than simply accepting the offer, she proposed a more comprehensive solution. Working with Gregory Jackson, the restaurant owner who had offered to partner with her, she had developed a plan to create a new restaurant concept, one that would prioritize both veteran support and employee empowerment. The corporate leadership, recognizing the potential for positive change, made an unprecedented decision. They offered to partner with Angela and Gregory in this new venture, providing financial backing while allowing them complete autonomy in its operation. This collaboration would become a model for how large corporations could work with local communities to create meaningful change. The afternoon brought another significant development when William Barrett, the veteran who had organized the initial protests, announced the formation of the Service Industry Veterans Alliance, SHIVA. This organization would work to ensure that veterans' benefits were standardized across the restaurant industry while also protecting the rights of service industry workers who support veteran communities. The impact of these changes rippled through the business community. Jennifer Hoffman, the Channel 7 anchor who had covered the story from its beginning, conducted an in-depth interview with business ethics professor Christine Ferguson about the broader implications. Their discussion highlighted how one act of kindness had catalyzed a nationwide conversation about corporate responsibility and community values. Local political response to the situation continued to evolve. Robert Manning's proposed city ordinance had gained significant support, but now included additional provisions for employee protection and standardized discount policies. The legislation, dubbed the Community Service Protection Act, would serve as a model for other cities across the country. The veteran community's response to these developments was overwhelmingly positive. Harold Bradley, the local VFW commander, worked with Brandon Palmer's newly formed foundation to create a certification program for veteran-friendly businesses. This program would provide clear guidelines for businesses wanting to support veterans while protecting employee rights. As the day progressed, more positive changes emerged from the controversy. Michelle Hammond, who had started the original GoFundMe campaign, announced that the excess funds would be used to create a support network for service industry workers facing workplace challenges. The network would provide legal assistance, job placement services, and emergency financial support. The corporate world took notice of these developments. Patricia Gordon, the head of human resources, received numerous inquiries from other restaurant chains seeking guidance on implementing similar veterans benefit programs. The Golden Harvest controversy had become a case study in how to balance corporate policies with community values. The afternoon brought another surprise when Douglas Lawrence himself made a public statement. Standing before the cameras, he expressed genuine remorse for his actions and announced his intention to work with veteran organizations to better understand their needs. His humility and willingness to learn from his mistakes added an unexpected dimension of redemption to the story. The local business community continued to evolve in response to the situation. Rachel Brewer's job fair had evolved into a permanent program connecting service industry workers with employers who shared their values. The initiative, supported by the Chamber of Commerce, would ensure that workers could find positions aligned with their principles. As evening approached, Angela's vision for her new restaurant concept began to take shape. Working with Gregory Jackson and the parent company, she developed plans for an establishment that would combine excellent service with strong community values. The restaurant would feature a training program for veterans entering the service industry and provide comprehensive benefits for all employees. The impact of the controversy extended beyond the restaurant industry. Rodney Stewart's national news coverage had sparked similar discussions in other service sectors. Companies across the country began reviewing their policies regarding veterans' benefits and employee discretion, leading to positive changes throughout the service industry. The day's developments culminated in a community celebration organized by Vincent Dean and the local veterans organizations. The event, held in a nearby park, brought together veterans, service industry workers, and community members in a display of unity and mutual support. The celebration marked the transformation of a potentially divisive incident into an opportunity for positive change. J.D. Vance attended the celebration, but not as a political figure. Instead, he came as a fellow veteran, sharing stories with other service members and expressing support for the positive changes emerging from the controversy. His presence emphasized how the situation had transcended political boundaries to focus on core community values. As night fell, the Golden Harvest restaurant prepared for its first day under new management. The parent company had decided to temporarily close the location for renovations and staff training, with plans to reopen as a pilot location for their new Veterans Initiative. The restaurant would serve as a model for how businesses could combine profitable operation with strong community values. The story's resolution brought attention to larger issues in corporate America. Thomas Gutierrez's follow-up analysis highlighted how the incident had forced businesses to reconsider their approach to policy enforcement and community engagement. His article became required reading in business schools across the country. The long-term impact of the controversy became clear as other businesses began implementing similar changes. The Service Industry Veterans Alliance grew rapidly, with hundreds of restaurants and other service businesses joining within the first week. Their standardized approach to veterans' benefits would help prevent similar incidents in the future. Angela Turner's story had become more than just a tale of injustice and redemption. It had evolved into a catalyst for positive change throughout the service industry. Her simple act of kindness had sparked a movement that would improve conditions for both veterans and service industry workers across the country. As the sun set on this fourth day, the community reflected on how a potentially divisive incident had transformed into an opportunity for growth and positive change. The controversy had demonstrated the power of standing up for one's principles and the importance of balancing corporate policies with human compassion. The Golden Harvest controversy would be remembered not for the initial conflict, but for the positive changes it inspired. It showed how communities could come together to support both veterans and the workers who serve them, creating lasting change that would benefit generations to come. The story's conclusion raised important questions about corporate responsibility and community values. What other positive changes could emerge when businesses prioritize both their employees and their communities? How can we continue to support those who stand up for what's right, even when it conflicts with established policies? Let us know in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed a similar situation where standing up for what's right led to unexpected positive changes? Share your stories and join the conversation about how we can continue to support both our veterans and the workers who serve them.